My name is Rachel. I'm 45. I'm a mother. I used to be a wife. And for years, I wasn't really anyone else. Somewhere between laundry loads and late-night bills, I faded out of my own life. I stopped laughing. I stopped dreaming. I became quiet. Too quiet. Until one Thursday afternoon in November, everything shifted. I came home from work, soaked from Portland rain. Cold, tired, just done. And there he was, Josh, my son, 22 now, backpack slung over one shoulder, smiling like the world hadn't touched him yet. "Hey, Mom," he said gently. "I have a crazy idea." I raised an eyebrow. He laughed nervously. "I rented that old cabin by Cannon Beach, the one Grandpa used to take us to, just for a few days. No work, no emails, just you and me. Let's get away." I almost said no. There were bills, clients, deadlines. But his eyes held something I couldn't ignore. Not urgency, not pressure, just hope. So I said yes. We drove west, away from the city, away from the noise. The road narrowed, trees thickened, the air turned salty and sharp. When we reached the cabin, the sky was turning blue-gray. The ocean roared in the distance, the house looked the same, worn, weathered, and waiting. Josh opened the door and stepped aside. "After you," he smiled. Inside, the quiet wrapped around me. Wood floors creaked beneath our feet. The scent of sea air mixed with something older. Maybe cedar, maybe memory. Josh unpacked like it was second nature. Blankets, books, instant cocoa, Uno cards. "We've got everything," he said. "You don't have to do a thing." That night, we sat on the porch. Wool blankets over our shoulders, hot tea in hand. The ocean roared beyond the dunes, waves crashing, steady and endless. Josh didn't speak much. He just sat beside me. But somehow, that silence felt safe. For the first time in a long time, I let go. The next morning, I woke up without an alarm. The smell of coffee drifted in from the kitchen. Josh stood barefoot, messy hair, wearing one of his dad's old shirts. "Made it just how you like," he said. "Extra milk. Barely sweet. Stirred counterclockwise." I laughed. A real laugh. God, it had been years. After breakfast, we cleaned the cabin, opened windows, dusted bookshelves, let sunlight pour in through the glass. Each little motion felt healing, like I was brushing dust off a part of myself I'd forgotten. That night, the wind picked up. Rain tapped gently on the rooftop. We stayed inside, warm beside the fire. I curled up with an old notebook I hadn't touched in years. Josh sat nearby, writing something in his journal. Then softly, he asked, "Mom, at my age, who did you want to be?" I looked at the fire. The flames danced like they were listening. "I wanted to write," I said quietly, "to travel, to live in a big city and tell stories. But then I met your dad." Josh looked at me. His eyes were soft, curious, but not judging. "Do you still think about her?" he asked. "The version of you before everything?" I hesitated. Then I nodded. "All the time," I said, "but lately, I don't think she's gone. I think she's been waiting." And in that small cabin by the sea, something inside me stirred. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't regret. It was the feeling of finally being heard, of finally being seen, of maybe, just maybe, coming back to life. The next morning, I opened my eyes to silence. Not the cold kind, not the empty kind, but a peaceful, almost sacred kind of quiet. The waves whispered softly beyond the windows. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the cabin. Josh was already in the kitchen, humming. The sun had barely risen, but his face looked calm, alive. "Morning, sleepyhead," he said, turning around with a warm smile. "I let you rest. Figured you needed it." He handed me a mug just the way I liked it, the same way he always remembered. I took a sip. The warmth ran deeper than just the drink. After breakfast, we cleaned again. Not because we had to, but because it felt grounding. Curtains flew open, sunlight spilled in like golden ink. We dusted old shelves, shook out blankets, rearranged the books. Each small movement felt like pulling breath back into the room, back into me. That afternoon, we walked along the shore. The wind was brisk, the waves playful. Josh kicked off his shoes, ran ahead, arms stretched wide like he was 5 again. "Come on, Mom," he shouted. I laughed, pulled my scarf tighter, and followed. The sand was cool beneath my feet, the ocean's rhythm steady, like a lullaby I'd forgotten. We didn't talk much, just walked, side by side, letting the sound of the sea say what we couldn't. And then, out of nowhere, Josh stopped. "I used to be angry at you," he said, eyes still fixed on the horizon, "for being so quiet all the time." I froze. His voice didn't carry blame, just truth. Software steady. Real. "I thought you didn't care. But now, I get it." He turned to face me. "You were tired. You were lonely. You were fading, and no one even noticed." A wave crashed nearby. I looked down, tracing our footprints in the wet sand. "I didn't mean to disappear," I whispered, "and I just stopped knowing who I was." Josh nodded. Then gently, he took my hand. Not like a child looking for comfort, but like a friend. "I see you now," he said. His words wrapped around me like a warm coat. Not dramatic, not loud, but honest enough to split me open. That night, back in the cabin, we lit a few candles and played Uno. He beat me every round, grinning like a kid again. "You're a terrible bluffer, Mom," he teased. I laughed, throwing a red card on the pile. "You're lucky I let you win." But deep inside, something fluttered. Lightness. Joy. Later, while Josh brushed his teeth, I lingered at the window. The sea shimmered in the moonlight. The world felt still. And I, Rachel, 45, felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not young, not perfect, but real. Whole. The woman in that reflection wasn't just a mother, or a former wife, or someone holding it all together. She was someone stepping back into herself. Piece by piece. Word by word. And for the first time in forever, I wasn't afraid of what came next. The next morning, the sky turned gray. Heavy clouds hung low like they were holding their breath. Rain tapped gently on the roof. The kind of rain that doesn't rush, just lingers. Josh was already on the porch, wrapped in a hoodie, a leather notebook open on his lap. I watched him through the window for a moment, pen in hand, eyes far away. He looked older somehow, wiser. I didn't interrupt. Instead, I made the coffee. Extra milk. Barely sweet. Always the same. I stepped outside and placed the mug next to him. He glanced up, smiled. "I've been writing," he said. "Don't laugh." I didn't. "I just don't want to forget this. Any of it." I nodded. "I used to write too." He looked at me, curiosity flickering. "What happened?" I took a slow breath. "That's a long story." He paused, then asked, almost like a whisper, "Mom, who were you before you became all this?" The question wrapped around me like a wave. Soft, but strong enough to pull me under. No one had asked me that in years. Not even myself. I stared out at the misty ocean, my voice quiet. I used to write stories. I dreamed of bookstores, Paris, busy cafes, and paperbacks stuffed in tote bags. I wanted to live loudly. Then, I met your father, and my life became about building something steady, safe, for you. Josh didn't speak, just listened. "And I don't regret it," I added quickly. "I don't regret you, but I do mourn the parts of me I buried." He looked at me gently, his voice soft but firm. "Mom, I always thought you were strong, but hearing this is the strongest I've ever seen you." Tears blurred the edges of my sight. I looked away, embarrassed. But he didn't let the moment slip. He reached into his backpack and pulled out an old object. Small, familiar. It was Dad's old tape recorder. "Tell me your stories," Josh said. "Not the ones about my childhood. The ones about you." I stared at the recorder, at my son, and at something I thought I had lost. My voice. So I began. I told him about the first story I ever wrote. How it got published in a teen magazine when I was 17. How I stayed up all night, writing by lamplight, feeling like I had unlocked something sacred. Josh sat still, listening like a child hearing bedtime stories. Only now, he wasn't hearing Mom. He was hearing me. That night, I wrote again. For the first time in over 20 years, my pen moved like it remembered the rhythm of my soul. Not a journal, not a letter, just words. For me. The cabin grew quiet, the rain softened, and something deep inside me cracked open. Not with pain, but with light. I wasn't slipping into the past. I was stepping into something real. Something that felt like beginning again. The next morning, the rain was gone. The sky opened wide, blue, endless. The sea shimmered like glass, hiding its wild heart beneath the surface. Josh burst through the cabin door, barefoot, towel over his shoulder, grinning. "Smoothies," he declared, holding up 2 icy cups. "Pineapple, don't ask why." I took one laughing. He sipped, eyes sparkling like he was 5 again. Then he said it. "Mom, will you go in the water with me today?" I froze. I hadn't touched ocean water in years. Not really. Not since before everything. "I might just dip my toes," I said, trying to deflect. Josh smiled, that same steady smile. "That's all you need to do. I'll take care of the rest." So we walked to the beach. The sand was warm now, the breeze playful. The sound of waves crashing was no longer distant. It was calling. We kicked off our shoes, walked closer. The tide reached for us like an old friend. Then Josh raised his phone, teasing. "Watch this. Rachel Dawson, 45, steps into the ocean for the first time in years. Will she dare?" "Delete that," I laughed, swatting at him. "Or you're banned from my kitchen forever." But something shifted. Maybe it was the sun. Maybe it was his laughter. Maybe it was the way the water shimmered, wild, free, alive. And I ran. Forward. Right into the icy waves. The cold hit like lightning. Sharp, electric. I gasped, screamed, then laughed. Hard. A sound I didn't recognize, but missed. Josh cheered behind me. "That's my mom." We splashed, spun. The waves didn't care about our past. They just embraced us. For a moment, I forgot the years, the heaviness, the silence. I was just a woman in the ocean, laughing like she'd never forgotten how. Later, we sat wrapped in towels on the porch, my hair dripping. Fingers curled around a mug of hot cocoa Josh had made. He looked at me. "You seem different," he said. I took a breath, then whispered, "I think I just stopped fighting myself." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. He reached over and gently rested his hand on mine. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud, but it said everything. That night, I opened my journal, wrote one simple line. Today, I walked into the sea. Not to swim, but to feel the pulse of possibility again. Outside, the waves whispered against the shore. The stars blinked through the night sky. Inside the cabin, I felt whole. Not because I was fixed, but because, for the first time in forever, I had chosen me. That night, after Josh fell asleep, I sat alone by the window. The sea was quiet, almost still. The stars faded in and out like memories. In my lap was an old notebook, worn leather cover, blank pages inside. It used to be my favorite thing in the world. And tonight, it called me back. I opened it, held my pen, paused. Then I wrote, "Dear Thomas, I don't know if these words will ever reach you. Maybe I'll burn this tomorrow. Maybe I'll never read it again. But tonight, in this cabin, with the ocean whispering outside, I need to say what's been locked inside me for years." I closed my eyes, let it flow. 10 years ago, I stepped into your life full of love. I believed we were building something together. A home, a family, a future. But slowly, without meaning to, I disappeared. Our dinners grew quiet. Your eyes stopped meeting mine. I became the one who reminded, who cleaned, who held things together. I used to dream of writing, of traveling, of standing in the sun and feeling alive. But those dreams shrank, bit by bit, until even I stopped noticing they were gone. I don't blame you entirely. I chose to stay. I chose silence. But Thomas, she's still here. The woman who used to imagine bookstores and sidewalk cafes. She didn't vanish. She was just buried. And tonight, for the first time in years, I heard her voice again. This letter isn't anger, it's truth. I don't know what's next for us. I only know one thing. I'm no longer willing to live as a ghost in my own life. I stopped, my hand trembling slightly. The words raw, but real. I didn't cry. Not this time. I folded the page, slid it into the back of the notebook. Not to send, not to erase, but to remember. I stepped outside. The night breeze kissed my face. Pine trees whispered above me. The ocean breathed in and out, slow and steady. Inside, Josh slept, peaceful, safe. And me? I stood on the porch, barefoot, wrapped in a blanket, feeling light. Not because everything was solved, but because something inside me had finally been set free. The next morning, the cabin was quiet. Not heavy like before, but clear, light, still. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting soft gold across the wooden floor. I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the snow begin to melt. Patches of grass peeked through, like the earth was waking up with me. Josh moved around the cabin, folding clothes, zipping up bags. Neither of us said much, but everything felt understood. When we were ready to leave, I paused at the doorway. My hand brushed the frame. This old cabin had held so much more than just a few nights. It had held my turning point. Josh took a photo of me just before we left. I didn't pose. I just stood there, still, calm, looking toward the ocean. Later, he sent it to me with a message. Your eyes look like they've already started writing the next chapter. On the drive back, the trees thinned. The road widened. Cell service flickered back to life. My phone buzzed. A message from Thomas. I'm home. Are you okay? I stared at the screen for a long time. Not out of anger, not out of pain, but because, for the first time, I didn't feel the need to answer right away. I looked over at Josh. He was focused on the road. His face relaxed, his presence steady. I whispered something quietly, maybe just to myself. This time, I'll be true. Not perfect, not pleasing, just true. He didn't reply, but I saw it, the slight smile at the corner of his mouth. A quiet knowing. We got home that afternoon. Everything was the same. The crooked painting, the flickering lamp, the plant that always leaned toward the sun. But the silence wasn't lonely anymore. I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, the counter, the window ledge. This house hadn't changed. I had. That night, I opened my notebook again. Not to write a letter, not to explain, just to speak to myself. I am still here, still worthy, still allowed to want joy, still allowed to begin again. The wind outside was gentle. The moon hung low like a watchful eye. I turned off the lights, slipped into bed, pulled the blanket up to my chest, and in the quiet, with the world at rest, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace.